Hello, humans. All right, so a critic wrote to me, and I'm going to respond to this critic. Now, this response is more for you who are truly seeking, or maybe you're new in your walk with the relationship with the Lord. Maybe this will help you grow. So, the critic writes Genesis 4 3 to 15, the first murder created by God. So, he uses the Lord accepted Abel and his gift, but he did not accept Cain and his offering. And he goes on to argue, God is omniscient and omnibenevolent. God created the emotion envy, which leads to anger, which leads to murder. God created the envious situation for seemingly no reason. God had to know when he refuses Cain's offering, Cain will murder his brother. This reveals the only reason for the refusal to create the first murder. God is definitely not omnibenevolent, but malevolent, likely not omniscience. All right, so, well, to start, critic, I like that you presented your argument in what seems to be a syllogism, which each premise sharing in the final conclusion, and your final conclusion seems to be God created the first murder because he's so malevolent. Now, you started out pretty good when you wrote that God is omniscient and omnibenevolent. So, according to the Bible, yes, this is true. God is omniscient. God is all-knowing. Multiple scriptures attest to this truth. Also, yes, God is omnibenevolent. God is all-loving. God is all good. Yes, those two statements are true. Unfortunately, everything else you wrote after that point was either ignorance or dishonesty. Either way, it is a lack of integrity in the interpretation. So, first of all, there is a big difference between what God permits and what God prescribes. While it is true that God created emotions, it is not true that God forces a person to use any emotion at any given time, especially when that person should not use that certain emotion. God allowing emotions does not demand the use of a specific emotion at the wrong time. It is for this reason, Genesis 4, 6 to 7, which you included in your argument, says, Then the Lord said to Cain, Why are you angry? And why has your countenance fallen? If you do well, will not your countenance be lifted up? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door, and its desire is for you, but you must master it. Now the command, you must master it, is God prescribing free will. Cain used his free will to choose murder even after God told him that he needed to master his anger and his desire to sin. It is for this reason it is written in Ephesians 4, 26 to 27, Be angry and yet do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger, and do not give the devil an opportunity. And where did Paul get that from? Well, David wrote in Psalm 4:4, Tremble and do not sin. Well, why is that? Well, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, because it gets us into alignment with God's absolute moral standard. Now, if you want to examine the depth beyond the surface of moral law, as it turns out, I wrote an article on that, and you can let me know what you think. I'd like to collect your thoughts on that. But it is also for this reason that Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians 10, 12 to 13, Therefore, let him who thinks he stands take heed that he does not fall. No temptation has overtaken you but such as is common to man, and God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able, but with the temptation will provide the way of escape also, so that you will be able to endure it. In fact, that is what God did for Cain. God provided the way of escape for Cain prior to Cain choosing to murder his brother. God did not create the envious scenario. Rather, both Cain and Abel had equal opportunity, and Cain chose not to do well. Further, Cain chose to sin when God told him to master his anger and his desire to sin. God did not desire to create a first murder because God's will is that man not murder. as is written in Scripture. It is for this reason it is written in 1 John 3:11-12, "For this is the message which you have heard from the beginning, that we should love one another, not as Cain, who was of the evil one and slew his brother. And for what reason did he slay him? Because his deeds were evil and his brothers were righteous." So, what was the solution that God presented to Cain? God told him to master his sin. So in essence, Cain was told to overcome his emotions and not allow feelings to determine facts. Cain was essentially told not to allow envy and hatred in his heart. In fact, God reiterates this throughout the entire Bible, that we should not envy or allow hatred in our hearts. It's through multiple scriptures. So in conclusion, the critic clearly lacks understanding of free will in relation to God's sovereignty and omni-qualities. So, if you struggle with this concept that the critic brought up, I challenge you to read the following articles that I published. First, free will. Because yes, humans have free will. And then, the Father's will. And then, between these two, our free will and the Father's will, these articles should help you understand what you do not currently understand. Listen, seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open to you. The Lord desires a genuine relationship with you.